Hello and welcome. My name is Emily Prieto, and I'm the co-founder of Seeds of Tao, alongside my husband, Joshua Prieto. If you're new to the podcast, this is a podcast for impact entrepreneurs creating regenerative enterprises. We often get asked what exactly a regenerative enterprise or impact entrepreneur is. So if you're wondering, a regenerative enterprise builds triple bottom line profits through the practice of ethics and principles that lead to a more inclusive, fair, and balanced economy. Impact entrepreneurs, or regenpreneurs as we like to call them, are those willing and able to take on the financial and personal risks of starting and building regenerative enterprises. You'll get to know exactly what all that means as you join us for this and future episodes, but know that we welcome everyone to join us as we work to build regenerative economies together. That's exactly why we're doing what we do at Seeds of Tao. Our mission is to help establish regenerative economies in every bioregion by serving individual regenpreneurs like yourself. In this podcast, you'll hear the startup stories in all their glory from impact entrepreneurs all over the globe. You'll learn and grow the skills of building a regenerative enterprise from your peers, mentors, and leaders. Finally, we'll get to know each other as you engage in the podcast and join the wonderful regenerative business economies ecosystem, aka Regen B, an open community where peers, colleagues, funders, allies, and supporters of regenpreneurs come together to build the regenerative economies of the future. Join us every month for a wonderful episode as we collectively move beyond sustainability and into our regenerative future. It all starts now.
Welcome back to the Seeds of Tao podcast. Noam, good to have you with me. We have Ryan James Kemp, another episode that we recorded quite a while ago. And Ryan has been doing all sorts of different things. He really is one of those folks that is just deeply immersed into the regenerative movement and really is advocating for the degrowth narrative and conversation. And so when we talk about this, there's so much going on here where most people in regeneration, I used to get some like really negative comments on doing conversations with regenerative business folks because I would get people from the degrowth conversation that are in the regenerative movement saying like this, business is not where we need to be focusing on, right? So it was really interesting to get that perspective, and then also to have a conversation with like Ryan, who's very much like an entrepreneur and someone that's pushing and moving the degrowth narrative forward. Just a couple thoughts from you, Noam. What do you think of this challenge that we have here in being entrepreneurs and kind of creating something in our current economic system, while also, really truly, I believe in degrowth, that we need to see a lot of industry move away from extraction and exploitative means, but we also need to see growth in so many other areas that allow for our transition into a regenerative economy. I don't know, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's one of the central tensions, and to be honest, or to give our listeners like a little bit of a peek behind our curtain, like I think it's pretty clear in our conversations. Like I'm a little more entrepreneurial focused, a little more business focused or bottom line focused, compared to yourself and compared to your fuller job blending things like spiritual capital and kind of knowledge capital, things like that. But I think that tension makes for a lot of interesting conversations. And I think the perspectives that, a business can be regenerative in and towards every form of capital, but if it loses hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars a year, it's not going to be a business. It's not a business. It's a charity or it's a nonprofit or, something, but it's not a business as we understand it. And so if you're able to kind of harmonize and synthesize the best practices from a lot of different schools of thought, you get a better outcome. So I always find these sorts of conversations with people like Ryan, like they always punch above their weight, right? They're always more insightful than you expect them to be. And, you always wind up kind of getting some insight from a perspective you weren't quite expecting that, those are the types of things that can be those kind of skeleton key unlocks for yourself, right? You may not believe or agree with everything the person says, but this one little thing lets me recontextualize this other piece I was thinking about. And that's, now everything falls into place, or the next few pieces fall into place, or whatever. So yeah, that's the kind of spirit I bring into this conversation, I guess.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, and thank you for sharing the perspective. I think it's an important one as we look at the ways that we can blend the new and the old, and where we're currently at in this present moment, to really take a look at we are in this great extinction event that we are causing, and we are needing to degrow so much of what our industry currently is, industries, and that does require a different perspective. And so let's dive into Ryan's conversation with us. He does bring this new perspective, and I'm curious to know what you guys think as you're listening to the episode. So let's dive into it.
Ryan, it's good to have you. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm glad to have you. We get to talk about Ryan James's story and his entrepreneurial journey that he's taken to help others, especially regenerative businesses, to kind of rethink and evaluate the way that they're operating. And so we get to explore that journey that he's taken to this point. Ryan, what got you up this morning? That's the question that we always ask first. And let's just get to know your day. How's your day going?
I really love my morning coffee.
Nice.
It's a beautiful ritual and a way to give thanks. So normally I'm just really excited to wake up because I get to make my coffee. So today I started out, and I have a specific mug that I drink out of. It has the honu, or the turtle.
Uh-huh.
So I like to bring in slowness into my morning, which I guess is oxymoronic, as I have my espresso from the Bialetti mocha pot in the morning. But I normally start my day off with that, trying to call in the energy of the turtle, call in the energy of presence, call in the energy of the earth. Honu is turtle and honua is earth, and this is in the Hawaiian language, so that the word is inside of one another. So I normally start off my day like that, and today I had a call with someone before this podcast, and after this I'm going to Maine. I'm currently in New Hampshire, what's currently known as New Hampshire, and I'm off to the coast of Maine today. It's my mom's birthday, so I'm going to go and have some oysters and go to not arts and crafts, but some sort of like festival of artisans within the Maine area, the central Maine coast. Okay. So that's going to be my day today. So it's going to be really nice, and it's really beautiful here. The leaves are changing. There's reds and yellows and greens, and the flowers are out, and there's a pile of zucchinis from my friend's garden in front of me that are just the biggest zucchinis that I've ever seen. Everything's really good today. So I feel happy to be alive today. So
awesome. Yeah, the zucchinis are often the thing that gets given to us from our neighbors' gardens and friends' gardens, right? So that just kind of reminds me back, because I've been in Panama for the last 2 years, and the changes of the leaves and the zucchini and what that just kind of reminds me of a certain time in the States that I'm used to in the routines. And just having that morning routine and that ritual, I think, really does help us as entrepreneurs when everything sometimes feels like you're all over the place, right? You're doing so many different things, or you get caught up into places. The first time that we chatted, you were in Egypt, I think, and you're a world traveler. You're all over the place, and you've delved into lots of different cultures and whatnot. And I'm sure that we'll get into that during your story. But how does your morning ritual of coffee and kind of slowing down, how's that kind of help you as you are all over the place? Because I know you're traveling a lot.
Normally, because of this consistent movement that happens in my life, the mornings are just times to revitalize my connection with where I am, because it's changing so much oftentimes that I find it pretty important to know where you are. And interestingly enough, that starts with me understanding directionally where I am.
Mm-hmm.
So north, south, east, west, which way is which way is the sun coming up? Like, where am I facing on the actual planet?
Yeah.
Because there's this strange thing that seems to happen for many of us, that we don't actually know where we are. Like whether that be like which way we're facing, or the trees that are in our backyard, or anything that's around us. Like sometimes we're kind of disoriented. We don't have our orientation. So within the morning and the ritual, part of the ritual is to like understand where I am this morning, like in my actual body, like how do I feel? Maybe what's sore,
Yeah.
maybe what's not, maybe how much energy I have, maybe reflecting on my dreams, but simultaneously also orienting myself to where I am that morning, because then it plugs me into that place and time, or space and time. And normally with the ritual too, I give thanks. I mean, so I skipped a part of my morning ritual. I'm just realizing it's actually the most important part of my morning. Is I start my morning off, before I do anything, I have a glass of water, and I say thank you to the water, and I place an intention into the water. Normally just saying thank you and some prayers for the water herself, but also how I want my day to go, and something that I might want some assistance with. So like yesterday I did like a 8-mile loop up in a mountain and around, and one of my feet are a little bit like tight. So I say thank you to the water. I also ask the water to come in and maybe help me to heal that part of my foot, make it feel a little bit better. And then to allow me to have a beautiful day, and just thank you for always giving me life and for creating all this beauty around me, because water is life. None of life exists without water. So they're synonyms, water and life, which is why the phrase mini wachoni, which is a pretty well-known phrase now around the world after the Standing Rock water protectors, and the Lakota phrase mini wachoni, which was part of that mantra or that anthem or that activist call for the protection of life, which is water, is why that's pretty well known now. So I like to start my morning off with that before the coffee. I wanted to add that in because that's really important, and that practice has actually changed my life, and it was shared with me from one of my teachers. His name's Rudy, and it really helped me out in my life. So
yeah, it reminds me of the book Messages in Water, I believe it's called, right? That small book. Have you ever read that?
Is it from Masaru Emoto?
I think so. I read that a while ago, and just it changed my thoughts around how I ingest water, how I think about it as a life force, and the energy that it carries, right? And that it can carry all sorts of energy, whether it's negative or positive. And so making sure that we're making sure that water, as we're ingesting it, and the water that we're made up of, carries the right energy throughout our day, can be a really big boost to what's going on in our life, and support to us as we move through.
Yes. And to add one thing as well, is that it starts our day off by giving something before we're taking something, which for me is that neuroplastic shift out of the continual extraction or taking of something before the acknowledgement and the giving of our own gratitude towards it is a really important reorientation of how we're interacting and relating with life. So even within the action itself, not even to mention the verbal gratitude and the potentially, like that book and Masaru Emoto's research suggests, the altering of the energetic patterns of water and the memory within it. But it starts us off realizing that we're in relationship and interdependent with these beings. As one of my teachers, Mindahi, says, water is not a resource, water is a being. So to remember that we're in relationship with life, and to in relationship with each other, like hopefully we're giving to each other more than we're trying to take, right? So if we can enact that relationship simultaneously back with the one thing that gives us life, I mean, water and air and food and all these other things, right? But like water is kind of the core of this. And even people say that the air is water in certain cultures. So just remembering that we're in relationship and to give something before we take something.
Well, definitely here the air is water in Panama. Because we're like 90% humidity, during rainy season. But yeah, so it's all around us. There's energy and memory that it takes, and that routine I think is really, really beautiful to kind of open yourself up, and like you said, to give something, to give some type of energy into that life force, and then before you consume it, right? So we got to know a little bit about your routine and your day and what's going on. You're going to be visiting some family and visiting your mom, which is a wonderful part of our life that we should never forget is our family, right? And being connected to them. If we forget that, that's really, we forget a lot of the reason why we're here, right? So I thank you for sharing a little bit about your personal side. I would love to kind of transition the conversation now into your work and what gets you excited to do the work. We'll start off there, and then we'll get to know more about what that work is. So what gets you excited to do the work that you do?
I mean, right now I'm literally watching the sun poke through the trees and pine needles falling to the ground. So there's a beauty that we're immersed in every day that this current pseudo culture of productivity and speed pull us out of, so much so that sometimes we neglect to understand the magnificence and magic of where we are. And because of that disconnection of the blessing of life, we take it for granted and we become entitled to it. And a lot of my work and what gets me excited about it is the potentiality of reinvigorating people's understandings of the magic of life and how to live in that consistently enough so that the things that we create and the ways that we create and the ways that we interact and relate with one another and move through life becomes enacted once again into the sacred nature of what our life really is. And business is just an outcrop of the ways that we think and act and believe that the world is. And for some reason, where we're at now is there's a really reductionistic, entitled, short-sighted, selfish, anthropocentric gaze on what we're creating. And it's forgetting about the higher order interdependencies that we spring from. So the work is really about interconnecting and reminding people and supporting them back in that direction, which will then create ripples in these people's lives. And it has already. But for me, that just gets me excited because it's all I'm doing is reminding people of some things, and looking at the entangled reality that we're in to such a degree that we can remember how deeply interconnected we are within time and space, within geography, within our bodies, within our minds, within the creations that we're doing, within our lineage of the businesses that we're creating, because businesses are also ancestors, except we're not really viewing them in that way. So it's just this reorientation of interconnection. And that gets me really excited because I learn every day simultaneously. And I get to connect with people from all around the world who are interested in remembering how to live in a good way, not just to have a good life in some material sense, but how to live in a good way. That gets me pretty excited for the work, and it doesn't even really feel like work.
Yeah,
it feels like I just get to share my experience and what I'm learning, and then get to co-create really beautiful things.
I really like, it didn't sound like work to me as you're kind of explaining this. And I'm like, wow, he gets to do this for work. This is what he's talking about for work. A lot of my stuff is more the technical side of entrepreneurship that I'm trying to help entrepreneurs to kind of understand in the regenerative realm, because we start off typically in this area of passion and excitement for something that we're even have a skill set for, or want to be engaged in our professional lives. And then we start creating businesses around it. And then we realize that we're lacking in some skills. And that's a lot of the work, especially since I've been a marketer and brander most of my life. Right. But the things that I also have to learn as an entrepreneur is my right relationship to the things that I'm affecting in the world, and the things that I hope to create change if I'm going to be a regenerative enterprise, right? And that's really what we're talking about here, the work that you're doing. Help us to understand, if you can, a little bit more of the process or the pieces of that work before we kind of dive in on how you came to doing this, because there's a huge story around that, and I really want to uncover that as well.
Yeah, so with the two halves of our brain, there has been scientifically documented that there's different functionalities or tendencies that these hemispheres of our brain operate within. Simultaneously within things, if you objectify them, there's the quantitative and the qualitative, which is what I hear you kind of touching into with the skill set versus maybe what some people would call a mindset. For me, the mind is set in something, right? But we often don't have the capacity to qualitatively shift how we interact with the world if we're stuck within the mind itself, rather than the actual malleable base that the lens is set in. So within the ability to create something, there's a vision, and you can have all the skills in the world and you want to enact change, but if you're still looking at something in a specific way, you're only going to create from that frame. And life has a lot of frames. Like for me, the word regeneration and life, they're synonymous. So how do we actually alter the qualitative essence of how we view the world, which naturally will then alter the way that we experience it, which will then alter what we want to create, as well as how and why. And then that, with the application of our quantitative skill set, then creates an entirely new emergent reality upon that place. So I think the skill sets and all of this quantitative work and the agency to do these things is really, really important. But simultaneously, if you're still looking at something from this purview and then if you've never even seen that the other side of what you want to look at exists, then you don't even have the opportunity to utilize your skill sets in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of just this, I mean, Ram Dass calls it polishing the mirror on an internal level, but and this is kind of what we touch into too, is a lot of these worldview understandings come from a disintegration between us and what we think that we're trying to fix, or what we're trying to solve, or what we're trying to save, or what we're trying to assist and learn with. And that disintegration is why the world currently is disintegrating, is because we are living on Earth, not with Earth. Even the phrase peace on Earth is a dominant hegemonic statement, because it's on something, it's not with it. So even within these small but very significant ways that we're framing things, we're still disintegrated from the relationality and unification that we're in with Earth herself. So the worldview and the qualitative aspects of this are really important, and that's what we touch in upon a lot within the first 2 weeks, and then we utilize all the skill sets of the unique participants, because everyone's unique. Like, you have your skill set in marketing and branding, someone else will have theirs in engineering, someone else will have theirs in something else. But the worldview itself can be unique and then unified all at once. And that's the cool thing about those words too, is unique and unity both have uni at the beginning. So that's kind of what we do, is we focus on worldview and all of the interconnected aspects of this, and then we pop out into applying that pragmatically with the skill sets that we have into whatever route is emergent within us.
Let's take a moment for a brief promotional break and talk about the state of our world. There are famines, floods, and fires in our backyards, a global recession affecting our economies, and war and conflict tearing down our relationships with one another. You see it in the news, feel it in your wallet, and talk about it in your social networks. It's hard to think that it doesn't affect you in your personal life and bring you down in your work. Except you want to regenerate our lands, turn our economies into circular ones, and do it in collaboration and community with others. How are you supposed to do that when it seems like everyone's working against you? You're an entrepreneur and you have a business that's going to help us solve these problems and bring these solutions? You're telling me you're going to change people's minds and raise capital for your cause and bring in triple bottom line profits? You must be an optimist, a dreamer, or completely out of touch. Who's going to buy your products or services, take you up on that offer, or help you fund your do-good business? We will. Who are we? We are the Regenerative Business Economies Network, a connected group of impact entrepreneurs, peers, colleagues, funders, allies, and supporters of regenerative enterprise building. Together, we take on the financial and personal risks of building regenerative enterprises. It's all of us together that creates the change we want to see. We must believe in each other and the work we've devoted ourselves to. If you want to be supported and also lend support to impact entrepreneurs like yourself, follow the promotional link in the podcast description or head over to seedsofdow.com and click on Join the Community. With that, let's get back to the episode.
Anytime I've seen even any close resemblance to like something that comes to unity, that's something that's really hits me deep, because that's like a part of my like my deep why is to kind of create more unity in the world and understand what that really means in that process. And when you kind of brought that up of unity and unique, they really do connect really, really well, because every time that I see something that's really unified, it's unique. Like, it's very unique in the way that it came to be that way, in the way that it is. And so you kind of see a lot of diversity a lot of times in those situations, right? Because people are able to find commonality, but the only way you're able to do that is to be able to embrace the unique pieces of everything else around you, the people around you, of the place that you're in, and all of the different parts. So I really like how you presented that and put it in my mind as well. So in this work, and just, I guess, one last question on the work itself that you're doing before we kind of get into storytelling mode of this. What what does this look like for a business? What types of business are coming into this kind of process, and where do they start, and kind of where are you hoping they end up, or where do they end up sometimes in this process?
Yeah, most people come in right now as individuals, as a part of a business, or in some sort of transition, normally coming from the places of disillusionment with the current system, which the word disillusionment is really interesting because it seems like a negative term, but it's actually a really positive term if you don't want to live in illusion. So there's something really cool about disillusionment, where a lot of people are like, well, I've been trying this. I've been seeing the system is trying to fix sustainability or do this, but nothing seems to be working. Like, I don't even know if I want to do what I'm doing anymore. Like, how do I even, there's kind of this, like, throw your hands up. Like what can I do next? Like, what's happening? How do I do something? So a lot of individuals come in there. They come in wanting to deepen their actual practices of sustainability. They want to understand things like degrowth or post-growth, and how all of these different economic systems can kind of fit into one another, and ecological economics. And some people get a lot of professional development, but not personal development. And they understand that they also need to change prior to them thinking that they can change some sort of system that they view as outside of themselves. So there's a lot of these different ways that people come in. A lot of people also come in because they want a community to talk to who doesn't think that they're crazy. You know?
That's me. I'll be honest there. I want someone to be able to talk to me on this level.
Yeah, and like a lot of people, like, I can't talk with my friends about this in Sydney. Like, I can't talk with my friends about this in India. Like, who's talking about this? Like, I don't want to message people on LinkedIn and just have this chat bot feel of like what's happening. Like, where's the real interaction? Like, I have questions. I need answers. Like, so there's a community aspect of this too, you know? So a lot of people come in like this, and then they either seed the change within their business, or they bring more people from their business in, which then creates a deeper inoculation of the ideas within the organizational organism. But most of the people have a range who are somewhat related to sustainability, ESG, impact investing, any of these different fields like that. Regeneration. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it. Sign me up. Right. This work so that you're doing, and bringing these professionals and entrepreneurs and the businesses that they're associated with in doing so, started somewhere. And so let's get into the story of how you started this work, where it all came from. And start us off wherever you would like, right? Where do you think this story begins for you? Please tell.
Sure. I normally start in 2010, where it feels like a certain chapter decomposed and a new chapter opened. So I was en route, at least I thought I was, to become a professional baseball player. Like, I set records in the New England region senior year, was recruited to a team, scouts were coming, all of this sort of stuff. And then within 2 years or a year and a half actually of playing with this Division I team, I realized that I didn't want to go professional, that was a dream that I no longer wanted to nurture. I don't even know if it was really my dream, which is a whole other part of this inception of dreams that happens through family and culture and all this other stuff. But there was a realization that I wanted to go and explore the world. So I basically quit the team. My partner and I at the time were having trouble, so we separated, and I moved to Hong Kong for the summer to study Chinese philosophy and international finance. And just being there for a summer and traveling to Thailand and Singapore and mainland China and Malaysia, and being in Hong Kong and meeting people from all of these different countries. I'd never really been to such a cosmopolitan, international, really cool, unique city, especially at that time of my life. I was turning 21. So like there was a fair amount of partying. There was a lot of other really really fun things. But Hong Kong really opened me up to the fact that there are places with a lot of culture that I had never experienced before. Culture being this really deeply rooted thing that I couldn't really put my finger on at that time when I was 20, but I knew it existed. I was like, wow, I've never seen all of this with the different foods and the music and the languages and the sacred sites and everything like this. And that there's more than one way to live. Like the way that I was been told to live my whole life, I don't actually have to live like that. I could, if I really wanted to, come to Hong Kong and start up a dim sum truck and like live on a boat.
Yeah.
Like I can do what I want, actually. Like, and so there was this opening up of a reality that happened. And I came back to Boston to finish my university degree. And I've just felt out of place. And people said, oh, it's just reverse culture shock. And I was like, I think it's reverse lack of culture shock, actually. So it was this weird thing where like I had been exposed to culture, and then I entered into this place where capitalism and ambition was the culture.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this doesn't even feel right. Like, where's the diversity that I was experiencing? Why isn't it here? Like there was this weird, like liminal space. So I just moved directly again over to Valencia, to Spain. So I pushed all my credits to Spain and finished my university in Spain. And once again, felt like I was gorging on culture, right? Because there's this really interesting thing that if you're really hungry and you haven't eaten in a long time and you use a huge bowl of spaghetti right in front of you, you're going to like eat all the spaghetti really quickly. And simultaneously, for I think a lot of people who are settlers, who are really disjointed from their cultural identities of their families, and in a country like the United States that has a lot of different diversity of other cultures, but like there's still somehow this bereft feeling of having a rooted culture and a rooted identity within landscape. When you go to places where there's cultures, and this is still happening now with a lot of new age movements with plant medicines and all this other stuff, is you try to gorge on the culture itself to fill some sort of emptiness within you. So like within me, that was still happening, right? I was just like, oh my God, I have never experienced like all of this different unique culture and ways of being and all of this stuff. So I was in that process, and then I was asked to go to Cameroon for my first quote unquote job out of university. And so from Spain, I went to Cameroon, to a rural village on the border of Nigeria, to attempt to figure out why 50 to 60% of the food from these farming confederations were going to waste. Waste meaning like animals were eating them, bugs were eating them. They weren't able, really waste meant not being monetized at the market. But there were all these other causes that were creating the waste. But waste meant like not being converted into value, essentially, for the farmers, so that their efforts, they were only getting 50% of their efforts, essentially, because half of it was going to waste. So I moved to this village called Bali Nyonga, and my day-to-day life was hopping on the back of an okada, which is what they call a motorcycle in Pidgin. And I would just go down the back of these like rural dirt roads into these farming villages, like way off in the bush. And I would meet them. I would see their fields. I would learn what processes they were doing. We would drink palm wine. We would play music. We would dance. We'd have and then I would come back and it'd be sunset. And I was like, that'd be my day. And like, I kept months. Really, to the point where I started to understand that I was not going to provide them with any solution that they didn't already know, because I can't tell them anything about their life. And I started to like see the weird interaction of international development and this sort of saviorism mentality that exists, where it's like, we're going to tell you how to fix something that you live within on a day-to-day level. And I realized that that was really deeply colonialist and colonized view as I started to learn about colonization from these people in the village.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was shown a mirror to like who I thought I was, not to mention the fact that I killed my first animals when I was over there to learn how to prepare them in the way that they were doing. Because I was like, oh, I want to learn how to make your chicken, Ma Colette. And she's like, all right, come to the market, kill the chicken. Here's how you.
Yeah.
So I was like doing this. I was interacting with land and food for the first time. I'd never seen how it grew really, or like interacted with the process, or dug holes, or done any of. So I was like reintroduced into a place that was living how humans have lived for a very long time that I had not been a part of. Because I'd been in this other world that's trying to make rules to fix something that wasn't broken.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I kind of think of it like you coming from like that very hyper focused, like you play one position or a couple positions in a sport, right? And then your world just being opened and it transformed in this process. A lot of it is, to some degree, you had to be open to a little bit of being uncomfortable, which I think can be difficult for someone in the Western world, and is oftentimes hard for people to put themselves in uncomfortable positions. But once you get comfortable with the uncomfortable, you start opening up in so many different ways, and you're exploring parts of yourself and parts of your being, and understanding of others becomes a whole another piece once you have that understanding of yourself, really, too, or a different understanding of yourself.
Thank you for adding that dynamic too, because that's something I often forget, is that to highlight this unknown, effervescent yearning for something else,
Mm-hmm.
like
mm-hmm.
that all of us feel it to some degree, I think. But stepping outside of the reality that I had embraced was my own. It seemed kind of effortless though at that point, because everything else fell apart. Like the baseball dream fell apart, the relationship fell apart. So there was like nothing really that I would be staying for that was better than what could lie ahead. So there was almost like I tried to turn back, but there's no door.
There wasn't anything that was holding you or tethering you back to going back to that certain life, right?
Yeah. And there was kind of the knowing that, well, if this doesn't work, then like, I guess I can always go back to whatever this is. So there's kind of like, it didn't feel like a lot of risk, basically.
Mm-hmm. It seems like a unique situation in itself, right? Because I'm sure people can release a lot of the things that are holding them back from making and stepping into something new. But in a lot of ways, people hold on to so many pieces of their life, and especially by the time you're in your 30s or 40s or whatever, you've held on to some really big things that you almost feel like there's no way for you to get out of that, like the relationship. For me, I have four children, a wife, and that just seems really, really heavy to even try to explore something new. Not to say that we haven't. I mean, for our family, it's a little different, but it's harder for it's almost like right timing for you, that you kind of came into a place where you were starting to recognize that you were holding on to some of these things, like the career, the dream of being a professional athlete, and then moving into a relationship. And so you were feeling that. So you have an understanding of what that is. And then also to be able to let that go and not have that tether as well, I think is a very unique situation and lends to the work that you were doing at that time.
Yeah, definitely. It was, like you said, I mean, all of the conditions were ripe for whatever was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And after Cameroon, talk about reverse lack of culture shock when I came back to Boston. I mean, I just been literally living in a village. It put everything into perspective, like especially my privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the fact that I was attempting to save something, like that I thought I knew something, that I was going there to solve something, and now I was brought into a deeper question of what is there to be solved other than the way that I'm viewing things. And I mean, I was showering out of a cup for a year, you know? And then you go and you see a shower, you see a flushing toilet, and you see these ceilings that are this high, and you go into a grocery store and you see all the food there, and there's people who don't have any and don't have any food, and everything is just kind of like a little bit topsy-turvy. And that's really what launched me into realizing that simultaneously, when I said that those other two things changed, which was the ideation of being an athlete, and then in that relationship, when those decomposed, there's only one way to go. Similarly, when this reality that I'd been conditioned into for the prior 22 years of my life, when I realized that it's been disjointed, like it's lost its rooting, it's lost its firmness into that this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, how do I even find people who might know something else, you know? Because I was learning from the farmers, but it wasn't in the same way. Like I wanted to learn from someone who had a little bit more, what I would at that time consider like a spiritual deep knowing of something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I tried to go to India because I'd always been drawn to India, but my visa got blocked. And I ended up rerouting to Hawaii, to the island of Oahu, where I ended up on a property with a Sri Lankan copper artist and sadhu,
Okay.
who had created a farm and an artist village. And basically that's where my life really took a turn for the deepening and the reconnection and the remembrance of a specific way of living, not a lifestyle, a life way, and a specific way of interacting with the world, where I would continue to travel and move from that point. But I think it was really landing on that farm with those people, and this one other teacher in particular, who is an Afro-Cuban man, that like rerouted my path to such a degree where I can say that I ended up where I am today is from that point on the island of Hawaii. Not to mention the islands themselves are really, really special places. But I think that's kind of the trajectory that happened. And that was the deeper turning point towards a more spiritual, interrelational dimension that a lot of my work finds its basis within, is within that.
Yeah, I like that transition, even within the kind of discovery moments that you're having, of like a realization that yes, there's something to learn from other cultures and places, but then there's also another piece of that unraveling of like where does the culture come from? How do I understand that level? And maybe where that wisdom and kind of basis comes from, because those cultures are ancient and they carry wisdom with it through many generations, and a lot of times, like you said, like the US, we lose sight of that, and I don't even know why that is. I think we have to desensitize ourselves from all the different cultures that are around us in a lot of ways in the US, because we can easily get lost in not really knowing, if we even have our own culture or whatever. And so our culture becomes more not having a culture, but understanding that there is all of these different things happening around us, but not to get too deep into it. It's all surface level, it seems like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. it almost becomes an experiential additive.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Where it's like, oh, I mean, it becomes a consumable. Like if you think about tourism, like you go to a place, you consume the culture there, and it's not an active living thing. It's viewed as almost a museum piece, where like this is what the culture is, but like that's not really how life is. Like life is like this. So yeah, like you're saying, this artificial understanding of it, which simultaneously is turning the culture into a relic. And when something is a relic, it's not necessary for your life. There's nothing that you can really learn from it to apply to yourself on a day-to-day basis. It just becomes this thing it's fun. It's something you interact with. It's almost like a plaything. Because the real like real life, like everyone's always like, make sure you travel while you're young, so then you can re-enter real life. It's like, oh, that's what you learned about culture here. Like, and when let me know when you want to get back to real life. It's like, well, what's real life? Like, that's actually, I mean, this is the definition of culture, right? Like, culture and cultivation come from the same word, the root word, colere, to till. So within culture, there's a deep understanding of place, deep understanding of land, deep understanding of food, which essentially is water, and all the things that keep us alive, right? So culture has to be rooted within the earth, or it's not culture. So like capitalism and all these sort of things, organizational culture, where companies say that they have a culture and all this stuff, like it's not a culture. Like a culture is built upon the relationality with place, where the language comes and the spices and the foods and the colors and everything is nested in that ecosystem. That's how a culture is formed, through observation and interaction and relationship for very long periods of time. So even our understanding of culture has been skewed. I remember talking to someone, and they were like, well, what about the 90s culture? I was like, sorry, dude, that's not a culture.
But
it's what I would call a pseudo culture. This is why I use the term pseudo culture, is because it acts as a petri dish of something, but it's not true to the definitional roots of what it means to be a culture.
Well, it's a time and place. It's a part of what makes up that culture, but it's not the culture itself. It's a time. Yeah,
but it's not really a place.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it's this I could go really, really deep into this, but I also want to just bring it into, because there's this moment, and I've noticed this with the kind of discovery of when I was open to some different parts of my life, my spiritual side. Definitely, like for me, it was my spiritual. I was raised LDS in a Christian faith, right? And I, in my youth, I believed in a lot of the spiritual pieces of it, and then I kind of fell away from it. But when I found the Tao Te Ching, is kind of when I started getting more spiritual again, and started exploring Eastern philosophies and different things and other cultures. Actually, that's where my culture is essentially from. I'm from the Philippines, right? And I'm, well, my ancestry is Filipino, Japanese, and Chinese on my dad's side, and European. He's half European, half. And so as I started diving into some of the philosophies of the cultures that's at least, I'm Heinz 57 all over the place. But the challenges that I had it was this really opening, and then I didn't know how to come back to make anything manifest for a decent amount of time. I had this better feeling about who I was, but I couldn't attach it back. I felt like I couldn't live back in the world again after, like I couldn't associate with people or understand why I would even want to go get a job or start a family or do things, because I really didn't. I got lost for a moment there. Even though I had found myself, I lost myself in my relation to others and why I should even do any of it. And I think you mentioned a point of that too. But I think also entrepreneurs, even this is more of a micro level, like you start something, you get really creative with the beginning of it, but then you also have to kind of relate it back to how it actually functions and works in the world, and regenerative business and permaculture or whatever, all of these kind of people that are in this space and sustainability are wanting to try and do something or getting these businesses and getting their own business in line with more natural systems. We have a hard time attaching it back to how it can actually live in the world, because then it just becomes ethereal. It becomes something that we're always thinking about. And so I want to bring us there, because I know it's a part of your story too, because you did create an organization that is working in the world. How did that come to be?
I like how you said natural systems, and also juxtaposed to us learning about natural systems, right?
Uh-huh.
Because our body's a natural system. Like, we are a natural system, and I think that a lot of this is really, really interesting, because like we look at the climate, right? And it's climate change. It's like, but we've changed, So of course the climate's changed. Like we want systems change, but are we changing? Like, how we want to learn from natural systems. Well, can we learn from us? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, this is what yoga is about, this, and Vipassana, like all these different experiential sciences are looking at us as natural systems too. So I just wanted to kind of bring that together, because within this journey, if we continually try to do something outside of ourselves that we think that we are not, we're going to be trapped in some sort of binary, which is one of the deepest issues that we're still in. Mm-hmm. Is that like, I have to find my purpose. It's like, no, you don't. Life is purpose, and you're a part of life. What else do you need to know?
I like that.
Like business and planet. No, those are not two separate things. Like civilization and the wild. No, those are not two separate things. Like, we cannot keep introducing binary thought into the way that we attempt to fix things, because then we're literally creating symptoms based on the way that we're trying to solve the problem.
So what you're saying, if I can try to put it in my own words and try to grasp it a little bit better myself, as I for my own journey, as I kind of felt awakening, understanding spiritually, and then also trying to discover how I can, be kind of living in the world. That's the challenge, is that I was getting too far off on where I thought I should be, or even what I am. I still need to really center that this is what I am. This is where I'm at. This is, and it's almost like a centering, a kind of coming back to where, I'm still working it out in my head, because for me, it's difficult, because I always get really far out into the future. Right. And I think, here I'm trying to understand how we might live in the right relationship to nature, how our economy can do that. But in reality, you're saying we are a part of nature. This is a part of the anthroposphere, the human environment that we've created is nature, and now we just got to understand where we're at in this piece. Is that where it's coming from, or help me to
I mean,
that a little bit for me?
we've been misbehaving as humans, right? Like the West, which is a tough term because someone is always more West than you, but the West are known as the little brothers, original cultures, and some in particular are known as the older brothers. So we're really like just throwing a temper tantrum of disconnection from the mother's teat. Except the issue is that we're not disconnected, right? The way that we're viewing things makes us isolated. And then there's trauma response of isolation. And within that, it becomes a parasitic relationship. Like, for example, the majority of the cells in your body right now are not human cells. Right, they're from microbes and various other beings. We could simultaneously lose our eye, our arm, or our leg, or still live. But if we lost the food, the air, or the water, we would die. But yet we view our eye more of a part of our body than we do the air or the water. Like, which one is our actual body? Right. So there's become this subjective boundary line that's been drawn between us and everything else. And therefore, we forget that we abide by the natural processes and cycles of what we are observing as separate from us. So there's this disintegration that has occurred, which some people call the theory of separation, but it goes really deep into the fact of this human boundary, human exceptionalism gaze of agency, vitality, story, and consciousness. That we might think that we have the capacity to observe and to speak intelligent languages, but like, we don't really treat trees in that same way. We don't treat whales in that same way. We don't interact with the world like everything else is of equilibrium to us. So therefore, we don't create systems of relativity. We're creating systems that are trapped in a stagnant, objectified worldview, rather than ones that can interact from relationship, not us relating to something else exclusively, but other things relating to us, other things observing us, other things having what they need. So the systems that we're trapped within this binary worldview always make it so that we're the one looking at something and nothing else is looking back at us and learning and listening and watching. And it becomes this really strange way to then harness everything for specific human purposes. Like, why are we trying to fix climate change? It's not about the earth. It's about us surviving. But like, this is part of the issue. If we continue to try to make it so it's just so that we'll survive, we're not going to survive because we're dependent on something else thriving.
Because we're missing out on an entire perspective of what is happening. And it's right relation is understanding of our interconnectedness, and part of, like you said, we are made up of, what's the latest understanding of that? Like 80% of us is other organisms or of what we consider our body, right? It's something like that. Like, it's the 80-20 rule back again in that way. And so really understanding that we're all interconnected, that we're all one is probably the challenge that I'm trying to voice here, is like that I always feel that I am I, and I have, like all the different I's that are there. And it's always centered around the individual in a lot of ways. In reality, we're not that way. Even even when we think of it beyond ourselves, we often just think of our own species. We often think of our own, our own life, communities and those types of things, and go out from there. Is that help? Am I getting it? Am I understanding it?
Yeah, that's what I meant by the human exceptionalism. It's that we think that we're the most evolved species on this planet, and that we make rules, But another thing that that Rudy said once that I really love. He's like, I don't know where you're from, but where I'm from, plants are in charge, not humans. And I think it's really interesting because if you watch where cultures have emerged, they emerge around a specific plant, which is why in like the tea ceremony, like at the center of the tea ceremony, they'll raise the tea up into the center as the point of reverence, because this ceremony doesn't exist without the tea. Like our life doesn't exist without the corn, our life doesn't exist without these other things. So like this human exceptionalism blocks us out from the understanding of the power that is derived from our connection with nature, not in isolation and manipulation of nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and the concept we're all one, like a lot of people view that and they think it's a woo-woo concept, right? Which I think is really unfortunate because they're misunderstanding the depth of what that means. Where the fact that we're all breathing the same air from the earth. We all eat the food that the earth gives us from soil. The word human comes from the word humus, which means ground or soil. Mm-hmm. So like that's our shared context.
Uh-huh.
So
we all come from the earth.
We all come from the earth. We're all human people that are reliant upon the same things to live. So like we're all one. It can be that simple. Like it doesn't have to be this like dissolving of any sort of like visual differentiation in the field or like any of this sort of like more psychedelic orientation. Like it can go into that, but like let's just say that we all need air. So like let's not pollute it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all need water. That water on Earth, since it's a closed loop, like it may have picked up a little bit of water as it moves through the galaxy, but like in general, that water has been the same water on Earth forever.
Mm-hmm.
So our great grandparents are drinking the same water that we're drinking now. Like for me, that's spiritual. Like it transcends time and space, to a point where like if we're polluting the water, we're not just polluting it for us,
Yeah.
Like we're all one that even exists throughout time and space. Like we're polluting the water that our great grandparents did their best to protect in order for us to be able to be here and drink water.
And what are we doing for our generation, the generations that come? It's a good, and I think this is a good time to move us towards the last part of the conversation that I want to have. Ryan, your story really is a huge part of the way that you're able to work with entrepreneurs, and really, I think it's also one of the greatest takeaways that we can have as entrepreneurs that are listening to this for lessons in our own businesses. When you're, telling this story, what would you, and I'm sure you've shared it with others and have been able to impart it on people at certain times in their business. What do you hope for others to take away from your story, and especially these entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast, trying to create some type of change, right, in relation to regeneration and creating greater life, and maybe even coming to this connection, is understanding. What would you hope they would take away?
Well, the first thing about any sort of job that I like to highlight is that every single job is a climate job, whether or not you know that or not. So to create something without that base level understanding, you're already in trouble. Like, I don't need to, this is like just an internet company. We don't need to focus on, it's like you exist on the earth. Or with the earth. So you should probably act that way. So there's something really important to just understand, that no matter what people are doing from a business, every single job is a climate job, whether they know it or not. Second thing is that a lot of us who want to make a change understand and have probably already been through a process where we have changed in order to even understand that concept that we want to change the world in a good way, right? There already had to be change somewhat to get us to that place. But there's a lot of different contexts to enact within us to become relevant within our own return back into the way that we can function within nested ecosystems and environments. So a lot of this is just really to become curious. So I think that becoming curious is a really, really big part. You know, I mean, like after I went to Hawaii that first time, I essentially continued to travel for the next 10 years. I ended up in close to 60 different countries and learning from all of these different people and interconnecting all of these different aspects. But none of that would have happened if I wasn't curious. Like the curiosity is what pulls us. And you can't really be aware of something if you didn't have curiosity to build the awareness in some way, shape, or form. Like there's ways to get bombarded by stuff. That's a different story. But curiosity is going to, it's a gravitational pull into the next level or dimension of your understanding of something. So without that curiosity, which unfortunately seems to be a dying art, without the curiosity, we're really in trouble. Because then we just accept things as they are. And some things it's okay to accept as they are, but most things in this existing system, I would say, don't accept them as they are, including the way that we talk about the things, right? So language has been the part of my journey that's most piqued my curiosity. English in particular, because that's the language that is my mother tongue. So I think to become curious about the interconnections of things and to become continually curious about how things function, including yourself, is really important in this journey of regeneration. And simultaneously, to never let your desire for the external systems change negate or neglect your observation and interaction with beauty on a day-to-day basis.
Say that one more time.
Yeah, I'll say it in a different way. So a lot of people, like, they're really drawn to making a change in the world. But when they do that, they literally don't stop and sit under a tree and just let leaves fall on their face, or like go and smell a flower on the street, or watch a child laughing, or like remember the deeper reasons why we're doing this work. Because if we neglect beauty, if we neglect joy, if we get sucked up in always trying to make a change, we're going to degenerate ourselves. So like a really important thing about regeneration is, how do you regenerate? And for me, I regenerate by interacting with beauty and interacting with the core aspects of life, like sitting with a fire, sitting with a river. Like, make sure that we never forget about these things as we attempt to try to fix or save some other system. You know, as one of my other teachers said, like, don't ever think you're saving something. You're not saving anything. Like, it's already saved. Like, make sure that you don't come at it from this way, you know, because it's such a burden to do that anyway, you know.
Well, and I see that so much in the regenerative realm, and I'm speaking from my own experiences as well of always wanting to create change, always wanting to see something in the future that doesn't exist because it needs help, or it needs this or that, right? And that mentality in itself is always looking at something that is broken, that is, you know, like it and there is no joy in something that's broken usually, right? And there's so much burnout in this realm of regeneration, climate, whatever, you know, all of they're throwing themselves into the fire, martyring themselves through the work that they're doing, and then they burn out, and then they have depression, they quit what they're doing, and then because they quit what they're doing, they get even further into a pit because they feel like they aren't doing something good anymore, or, you know, like, and so you see these, and I've seen it with friends where it really hits them hard, right? And they never really return to the work in the same way, or even in the desire just completely loses themselves, right, in that work. And even the more drastic, people are losing their lives in that situation, right? That's the end, challenge that we're having, is people care so deeply. They want to see something change so much that they're unable to do it, because you're going to change the world. And if you don't, what's going to happen? That there to me is it's hard. So you saying that to me helps me to kind of step. It doesn't need to be changed, right? It doesn't need to be changed. Well, it's not broken.
Well, I want to play angel's advocate, because things do need to change.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to get lost in the process of us being the singular entity of that change dismisses the power and agency of Earth and everything else that also is naturally changing at all moments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like, we have to regenerate a forest. Like, well, maybe we just don't have to touch it at all. Like we need to do this. Well, do you think that thing is not already doing that, and you just have to reinvigorate your understanding of it? It's like the interesting part. I met this Sufi guy once, and he's like, you never have to create anything. You just have to remember it. And I think it's really interesting, because remembering is not a concept. Like, the opposite of remembering is not forgetting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Opposite of remembering is dismembering. This was told to me by Stephen Jenkinson, and he's like, remembering is not if it was as easy as us just remembering a fact, it would be easy, but it's not. Like, remembering is an active process of reattaching ourselves to life. Like, the rituals, the day-to-day actions, the things that we do on a personal level that actively shift our node of time-space locus. And if we do that, like, that's how you get to a tipping point, right? It's not that like we're going to do everything alone, but like, if everyone starts to do this on a personal level, then things start to change. And of course, there's also top-down legislation and all this other stuff. I'm not trying to avoid any of these larger geopolitical sort of movements that need to unfold. But like, on a day-to-day basis, how do we live in the world?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And things will change.
Yeah, I like that. And in the remembering of that is helping us to bring it back, to pull it back together. As an entrepreneur in this space, that is probably the work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? That's what we should constantly be doing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, this for me is what right relationship means. It's not like, I don't like the word right, because then there's a wrong, but like, instead of right, I say like pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, in what way are we relating to things that allows them the animacy and the life that they truly are to be present? And if we walk around in the world with this understanding, and this is where our creations are coming from, is a kinship worldview, where everything is not only kin, but involved in their own vitality and story, then we're reinvigorating a world of bountiful and abundant life and consciousness that already is here, but for whatever reason, we're not seeing it, So, I mean, the whole process, this is why Rebiz in particular is called it's a business as usual unschool.
Mm-hmm.
That equips people with the worldview and skill sets to enact regenerative change. Because most of what we need to do now is not to learn more things. We need to unlearn and deprogram more than we need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
The intellect is never the problem. The over-intellectualization is the problem. but really like the intellect, like we're not lacking in this capacity. We're lacking in the creative and heart connection that motivates the intellect from that unitive place. So that's about the last thing that I will say, because I know we're getting short on time.
No, I think that's a good place to leave it too, is that understanding of rights relation, and really kind of unpacking that as being able to understand what we need to deprogram ourselves, right? To deprogram ourselves in the understanding, so that we can really find our way towards a better relationship with the things around us. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you for coming through that journey to be able to share that with us, because I don't think it would have happened if you hadn't experienced all the different things that you've had to be able to share it in such a way. And it's helped me in my understanding of what my business is doing and what I want to be doing in it. How can others get in touch with Rebiz, with the work that you're doing, Ryan, follow what you're doing, get involved in it?
Yeah, they can find the website. It's www.rebiz.io. Our last cohort of the year is just started, but we have some coming up in January of 2024. The community is now close to 85 people from this first year that we launched, and it's from 24 different countries, I think. So it's a really beautiful global movement of people who are looking to revitalize their relationship with life and how to bring that into their businesses. So anyone can find me there. I also have a personal website which they could find me on, but I think Rebiz, if they're interested in that, they can always reach out on that website. And other than that, I mean, there's just a lot of work, a lot of connections, and a lot of things to be done together. You know, like this is all a co-creation. Like I'm not here to like teach. I'm just here to learn with people, a very non-hierarchical way, which is why we've constructed Rebiz the way that we have too. Is it's a learning journey made of seeds. And they're not all coming from us. They're all interwoven with other teachers and ways of thought and intersectional topics too, so that people can start to plant the seeds on their own, you know, because that's how anything is sustainable anyway. You can't have like some centralized hub of something that's distributing it. Like everyone has to start to be able to plant them and test them on their own and grow them in order to hand the seeds off to others. So yeah, we welcome everyone to come in to join. It's not only a course, it's a movement and a community. So we're looking to just continually gather people who are interested, to have people to relate with and talk and solve some of their pressing issues with as well. And so, yeah, they can find me through there.
Great. So those that are listening today, and wherever you're at in time and space right now, head over to James's website, Rebiz. We'll get your personal website on there as well, so people can look at that. And your business partner as well is on LinkedIn. I really love the content she produces and the thought-provoking conversations that are there. If you can, just share a little bit about that and where they can connect there too as well.
Yeah, her name's Erin Rembrandt. She's a leading voice in the degrowth movement. She's all over LinkedIn. You can find her, Erin Rembrandt, and she's the co-creator of Rebiz with me. She focuses really deeply on the degrowth, post-growth sort of ecological, economic understanding about how these things function in the world, how to build degrowth, post-growth compatible businesses and organizations, and how to take all this other work that we're doing from an internalized level and reconnecting it with the systemic level and building these regenerative enterprises that focus on this as well.
Yeah, so, and I think that's how I got in connection with you, and I've forgotten Erin's name for a moment there. So thank you for sharing. And yeah, it's really cool to see a really strong voice in degrowth on LinkedIn. It's kind of fun. It just kind of makes my day every time I see the conversations that are happening there. So check. I'll also put that in the links as well, so you can follow along with the conversations that are happening on LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ryan, for joining us again and sharing your story. And we'll definitely have you come on again in whatever way that we can have you. We would love to have you join us on the Seeds of Doubt podcast.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the podcast, and it really is a blessing and a pleasure to bring each episode to you. So what'd you think? If you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a review or follow us on the podcast platform of your choice. Each review really does help us further the reach of this podcast and move our mission forward to build regenerative economies in every bioregion. If you have a suggestion or feedback for us, please let us know in the open and free Regenerative Business Economies ecosystem, known as RegenB, which is linked in the description and in the show notes of this episode. RegenB also has an awesome community request form that allows you to suggest guests. Register to be a guest on the podcast and share your own regenpreneur startup story or any other suggestion you might have for the community. Without your feedback and requests, this podcast and community wouldn't be what it is, so please let us know. Now, this may be bye for now, but remember, it doesn't end here. It has only just begun. The regenerative economies of the future start now with you.